like Window Lorraine, you were driving through there, is that right?
Yeah, we drove through, we were in Billings, we went down, spent the morning there.
Right.
And then went to
And
Rapid
you
City.
drove through.
Yeah, 2 days ago.
Yeah, so I basically, guys, if you ever travel these places, I find that traveling out of Buffalo Airport is pretty easy, because I found that if you travel from Pearson to Billings, Montana, which is the closest town, it's way more expensive than going across the border and flying out of Buffalo. So we did that. We flew out of Buffalo Airport to Billings, Montana, which is still about an hour and a half or so from the battle site. So,
You couldn't do that nonstop, though, could you? You have to do.
yeah, you still have to, stopover was in Chicago, so O'Hare. So I got to see, by the way, if you are in Chicago, they got, well, it's not Bush O'Hare, it's aircraft, but there's a Wildcat at the airport commemorating Bush O'Hare, and that's who everyone hopefully knows who Bush O'Hare was. So that's the stopover in Chicago. But anyways, so I was out there. Now, here's the thing. You notice the dates. It happened Saturday, June 25th, to Sunday, June 26th, 1876. So I was there Saturday, June 25th, to Sunday, June 26th. It happened to be the 137th anniversary of the Little Bighorn. And I'm going to be so politically incorrect. People were asking me, why are you going out to Montana? And I said, well, I'm going out to watch some Indians kill some U.S. soldiers in the Indian country. What? But anyways, all of you, I'm assuming, know the Custer's Last Stand, Little Bighorn. I'm not going to talk as much about the battle as I am going to talk about the trivia and things that I uncovered when I was there that I didn't even know. Because you go on the net and there's movies, Son of the Morning Star. If you want the best movie, I think that's the best movie on Custer and the Last Stand is Son of the Morning Star. The book's very good, but the movie is also very good. It's actually the main character of Custer was the guy that played Brady on the Brady movie. It works. So. Anyways, we're going to take you on a journey of the Little Bighorn and just some of the little tragedies and trivias of that battle. Just a little bit of humor, if you can see it. There's a nice tribe with an arrow, and there's a little bit of dark humor here, but basically you all know that nobody survived in Custer's command. Everybody got wiped out. Well, there were 2 survivors, and we'll get to that later. So the Little Bighorn was not only caused by the usual thing that we all think of when we read about it in school textbooks. The U.S. forced migration of natives onto reservations, the Indians resist, and there's a fight. It's not that simple. It's actually much more deeply rooted in conflict. And just so you know, it happened during the times of what they call the Indian Wars, right after the U.S. Civil War. So the Battle of the Bighorn, as they tell you, happened because the Second Treaty of Fort Laramie. I mean, the whites broke everything in the book. They set up these treaties promising the Indians that they would keep their land and hunt on them and break them. Because guess what? They found some gold. And in the end, that's what we think we're taught. That the U.S. government guarantees to the tribes, the Lakota, Arapaho, and Dakota tribes, that they can freely hunt until, guess what? They find gold. And the U.S. reverses its intent. But the other reasons are the Indian Civil Wars. Now, when you dig deeper into this thing, the Indians, and yes, they were called Indians in the States, and I spoke to several of them there. They called themselves Indians down there. The Sioux, the Northern Cheyenne, and the Arapaho fought the Crow, the Rickarock, and Pawnee tribes. They were more enemies. And in fact, if you read, this is due to the encroachment of the Sioux, sorry, let me back up, the Sioux in Northern Cheyenne onto Crow or Rickarock Pawnee territory. And because these tribes have occupied these traditional lands where Little Bighorn was since 1250 AD. So the Indians were fighting amongst themselves. And these tribes were more enemies than these. So it wasn't just as simple as the Treaty of Fort Laramie. So a lot of people need to understand it's much more complex. Where is the Little Bighorn? Well, that's the United States, here's Canada up here. It's in Montana. It's actually in southeast Montana, just north of the Wyoming border. You can probably see it on this map a little better. There's Montana here, here's Wyoming, Idaho, there's Canada, so Alberta's up here, Saskatchewan. It's down here. Closest is Billings, Montana. And basically, you go out there, fought on the ridges and bluffs and ravines of the Little Bighorn River. Very different geography out there than you see here. Billings is about an hour and a half, about 118,000 people. That's the closest city. Billings wasn't there when the conflict was on. It came after a battle. So back then, there really wasn't anything out there. The closest were U.S. military force. And Custer came from places like, I think he came from Fort Lincoln, which is way up here in North Dakota, and through marching by horse got to, there's a whole thing about the campaign. I'm not going to get into that. Custer was expecting an easy victory, but guess what? 700 troopers versus, they think the estimate is about 7,000 Indians. Now, this is men, women, and children, but when you break that down, they still think that there were about over 2,000 raised, like Indian fighters. So even 2,000 versus 700, you're grossly outnumbered. Now, one would say, well, the U.S. had Spencer repeating rifles. The Indians had everything. They had Winchester repeaters, they had Spencers, they had muskets. They actually had ramrod muskets from the Civil War. They had arrows and things. But most of the battle, the casualties caused, were mostly by firearms. Where if you look back on other Indian battles, like the Fetterman Battle, which occurred 10 years before the Fetterman Massacre, pretty all the casualties caused by bows and arrows. So the Indians had by that time progressed to carrying firearms. And if all of you go on YouTube and look at some of the forensics, they dug up and found that the Indians, they had all sorts of stuff. And the U.S. primarily has Spencer repeaters, so they knew they could map movement of troops on the battlefield compared to where the Indians were. And it's not necessarily the last stand that you normally think of. So basically, the fight was an overwhelming victory for the Indians, who were led by several major war leaders. You've heard of Crazy Horse, Chief Gall, Sitting Bull. They say the most accurate depictions are the Indian drawings. And these are the ones that they made of the battle. They're kind of pretty graphic if you look closely at them. You know, heads being chopped off, limbs being chopped off. Custer's 7th U.S. Cavalry was the force in total under his whole command was 700. But realizing that they were all commanded by Custer, Brevet Major at the time, during the Civil War, he actually went down in rank after the Civil War. He did suffer a major defeat, but he broke off his units, as you'll see in a moment. I won't get into the details. Everyone under his unit was killed. Not everyone under his command, because some people were back trained and other people were at another part, and I'll show you in a minute. But 5 of the 7th Cavalry's 12 companies were completely wiped out. And those 5 companies were under Custer, and of course Custer was killed. So again, it's one of these famous things where nobody survived. Now, I'm just going to go briefly over it. It looks complex. The battlefield is here. Like it's around here. And if I can summarize the movement so that you don't get confused. Custer's coming this way. Okay, then he spots an Indian encampment. This is the Little Bighorn River. He finds an Indian encampment down here. And he says, okay, that's a pretty large bunch. Let's break up into 3 parts. He leads a part going this way, and then he leads the pack train under a guy called Captain Benteen. It's kind of like the supplies. And he asks the other Major Reno to take another group to go this way, kind of like a pincer movement. So you understand there's 3 moving parts to this battle. The Indians are sitting here minding their own business, and then Custer comes along trying to outflank them while Reno is told to attack them down on the south side in the south. He crosses the river and attacks the Indian encampment on this side. The Indians have no idea that they're coming. And Benteen's looking after all the supplies back here. And so that's basically how it starts. And eventually what happens is Reno retreats because, whoa, there's so many of them, and he crosses the river and barely survives, but he does survive, but quite a few of his troopers are dead. Custer comes around this way. Now they think he was going around them, not just to outflank, but he knew they were large to try to take hostages. And so that was, they think, his game plan. It seemed to work at other battles he was at. But this time he tried to, there's just too many. And ultimately, his command of 5 companies, they were, you can see all these blue units, they were all scattered. And ultimately, Custer's over here at Last Stand Hill, the companies are trying to do a defensive maneuver, and they keep getting pushed back, annihilated until they reach Last Stand Hill, and they're all gone. So that's kind of where you see, without having this thing so complicated, Indians on the south end of the river, Custer up here, Reno down here, and Benteen on the pack train. Okay? So some of the pictures of what really happened, don't look at the old movies, they're completely inaccurate. These are some of the things, the illustrations I found that were close to real. I forget which artist did this, but at this time, all the horses were shot as barricades. And the Indians surrounded, and most of these guys were on foot, and they ended up being massacred in kind of like a situation like this. There's another rendering here where they're all surrounded on the hill, and the Indians are attacking, and you can see again the dead horses. So this one here, apparently by Bruce Luce, is arguably the most accurate painting of the Last Stand at Little Bighorn. And it's accurate because he's actually mapped out a few of the important characters. This fellow with the long beard and the white cap is actually a Canadian. He was Custer's adjutant, like a second in command if you want, 2IC, whatever, not quite 2IC, but a person that was his right hand. And the guy was from Hamilton, Ontario, and he died alongside Custer, and that's actually the way he looked. He actually had a long beard and mustache. He was scalped, and they have accounts of the Indians of that. There are others around here, I'm not going to go into detail, but this is probably arguably the most accurate rendition of Custer's Last Stand, from the 7th Cavalry Standard to the proper guide on U.S. 7th Cavalry and the national flag. Now, the Little Bighorn was not the only U.S. battle with 100% loss of men in a single battle. The top battles with the highest number of killed in action, I'm not talking about wounded, I'm talking about killed in action, to a U.S. unit, ranked by order of percentage. What do you think the top battle is with the highest KIA? Yeah.
Wake Island.
Wake, okay. Anything else? Keep coming. This is all kind of part of it. Anybody else?
Petersburg.
Petersburg, that's Civil War.
Antietam.
Antietam, okay. Anybody else?
Gettysburg.
Gettysburg. Gettysburg's on there. Anybody else?
Fredericksburg.
Fredericksburg.
Omaha Beach.
Omaha. Yeah, that's on it. You know, here we go. So the first one is the 7th Cavalry Custer. So he lost 100% of his men. 268 men died with him at 1876, the Great Sioux War. So he's at the top of the list. KIA, I'm not talking about wounded. And I'm only talking about KIA so they're all wiped out. The second one, Alamo.
Oh, right.
Right?
Yeah.
200 men.
Only 200 men.
But still, they're all dead. Okay? And that kind of makes sense. Not even the Alamo, same thing. It's very, very, it's kind of like a very surreal place where everybody's just got wiped out. Fetterman, the Fetterman Massacre. This is about 2 hours south of Little Bighorn. When I went there, there's nothing there. It's one of these national parks that's called it's like a remote national park. They have pamphlets, there's no staff there. And there's signage, and you can log into an app. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's probably about 45-minute drive to Fort Kearney, which is it's more of a museum site. But the Captain Fetterman site, different topic, 90 men, 10 years before, they get entirely wiped out by Red Cloud and his Indian raids in 1866. And so that and he went in thinking, rumor has it, he said, I got 80 men and I can take care of the whole Indian nation. Well, he actually died with 80 men and he didn't get anywhere. Next one. The Dade Massacre. You ever heard of the Dade Massacre? Hands up. Wow. Florida. Okay, Florida. So that's where Dade County comes from. Major Francis Dade. So this guy was 1835. This is actually the year, basically the same. Where's the Alamo? The Alamo is coming up. So the Alamo is, where is it here? Oh no, they're killing the national. I'm sorry. The Alamo's here. So 1836, 1835 was this massacre. Why doesn't anybody know about it? Because the Alamo took all the fight. But Major Francis Dade got massacred by Seminole
Technically,
Indians.
it's not America, it's Texas.
Yes, it's Texas.
That's the other reason it's not the Israel.
Right. Right. But this one's a fascinating battle. If you want to read about Francis Day Massacre, he's moving from what is currently today, what is it? It's near Orlando. There's actually a battle site there. And he was making his way across to the Gulf of Mexico. And then he got basically slaughtered by the Seminole Indians. Those survivors. Next one, Gettysburg, first Minnesota. In 1863, first Minnesota lost 71% KIA in that battle. Again, these are units by battle. Next one. Bet you nobody heard of this. First Infantry Regiment, 1791, the Battle of Wabash. Ohio Indian Uprising. They lost close to 700 men, 66% of their command were dead. This place is in Ohio. I think it's northeast of Indianapolis and northwest of Pittsburgh. And they got all surrounded in the snow and got slaughtered by the Ohio Indian Uprising of 1791.
I think that uprising actually was, I think the British had something to do with that.
Yes, the British were helping the Indians. The British helped out.
And that was several years before the War of 1812.
Right, but there's no accounts of the British helping in the Wabash massacre, but they did kind of supply the Indians and all that stuff. Then, of course, we have the first Marines at the Battle of Peleliu, where, look at this, they killed 1,300 men. That's a lot for that little island. In 1944. Number 8, the Ranger Battalion in Italy. They lost 311 men. It took me a while to get these stats together because they all report on, and things kind of the numbers change, but killed in action, these are the rankings. 4th Marine Regiment, Corregidor, against the Japanese, they lost 475 men killed in action. Okay, the battlefield today, that's the park entrance. What does it look like today? That's what it looks like today. And if you go there, I'm told that park rangers, this is not the vegetation that looked like back then. It was all shorter grass. In fact, the Indians call this the Battle of the Greasy Grass. And it's a certain vegetation that leaves grease marks when you walk, much shorter. So it's not like this lush green, apparently, like it was before. And there was a big fire in the 80s that basically tore away all of the original vegetation. This stuff grew back, and because of that fire, they found all the archaeological stuff. And that's how they, but this is part of the battlefield. You're looking basically from north to south. That's the little Bighorn River. The Indian camps on this side. Okay, you're looking southward now from that map I showed you earlier. And these are the little undulations and valleys of the little Bighorn. Again, that's the kind of
coulees.
Sorry, coulees. They're called
Coulees. Means a deep ravine.
Yes. Yeah.
Harvey,
Yeah.
is that to like the ice age or something, glacial?
I would think, I'm not an expert. My only definition of coulees is my ancestors working with.
Spell it.
So hey, and my grandfather was a coolie, so I can say that. Huh?
Wrong spelling.
Yeah, I guess it was from glacier.
Coolies at the end.
Coolies, yeah. Now the place like Gettysburg National Park has got a lot of neat signage, but if you look closely, the signage is quite accurate. This, you see this here, that's this. And you see that the ravine here is this ravine, the river is the ravine. You can see they tried to map it out. Now, it's hard to see in the back, but this is Reno retreating from the Indians as the Indians chasing him. He tries to attack, oops, this is not working, and the Indians chase after him, wiping out quite a few. They lost quite a few troopers at that crossing. A lot of them were killed, and more were killed trying to climb up the slopes, right? So this all happened here. And if you see the sign and you see where it happened, it's like Gettysburg, it's surreal. It happened there, right? So the signage is very accurate. And remember I mentioned Reno Benteen, they try to help Custer, they get a little far, oops, this is not working out, we can't get any further to help Custer. They basically go into a circle to try to defend themselves from the Indian attack, and it's called the Reno Benteen Defense. It's further west of the Last Ant Hill. And you can see these plaques, I mean, you can read it, but It's basically saying that after an unsuccessful attack on the camp, they retreat back here. They actually built this little field hospital there, and there's trails here now, and there's a parking area, but around the peripheral are still the remnants of the trenches that they used to dig with their canteen cups and you can still see them. You're not allowed to walk in them, but you can see the undulations, and they're not deep. They're probably maybe 2 feet, 3 feet at its deepest. Those are the defenses, and they barely survived, but they did.
Harvey?
Yeah.
Am I right in remembering an account I might have read, can't replace it, but that Custer and Benteen were on the outs? That
Yes.
Custer did not like him, they
No.
were mutual animosity there?
Correct.
And moreover, that on the day of the engagement, that Benteen was, I don't know how better to say this, but in his cups. That he
Yeah, they
was
did not
actually-
like each other. So the rank order is Custer. Obviously, he's Lieutenant Colonel, and then Major Reno, and then Captain Benteen. So Benteen's at the lower end of the totem pole, but Benteen and Reno did not get along with Custer. So Custer wants all the fame. They didn't get along. I don't know if that's part of why they got separated that way, but they did not like each other. And some argue, say that, well, because you didn't like it, you didn't go up there and help. There was a contingent for Reno Benteen that sent a company out there to help. He said, screw this, you guys just sit here, I'm going to help Custer. And I'll talk a little bit about that. They got white killed. So some people say it's probably better that they stayed. And if you look at the history, Reno had PTSD. Once he lost it, by the time he tried to attack the Indian camp and he lost like half his men, he was not fit for command. Benteen was the guy that basically almost won a Medal of Honor for what he did to do this. Now this is the site now, the center of their defense. There's an obelisk there about the names of the Reno Benteen defenders. And what you're seeing is the defenses around here, the Indians are all kind of coming this way. Again, it's pretty surreal. Further, here's the sign that says, "Don't walk down the embankment because there are the trenches down there that the soldiers dug. You don't want to destroy them." This is the First Nations. That's our term. But the Indians have now have their own memorial, and that should be due. They should have happened long ago. And they have their own little. This is near Last Ant Hill. And they had their own memorial there for the various tribes that fought and died there. Now this is the Indian camp looking north the other way. So this is the little Bighorn. There's the river, and this is where the Indian camp was. And this is the same Indian camp. There's the river. This is where the reenactment took place. There was a big reenactment. It was fabulous, and I'll show you a picture of that in a moment. So the Indians actually own, I hope I get this right, they own part of, or they're allowed to run their horses and do the reenactments on the national park because their reserve is there.
Hey, Harvey,
Yeah.
of those 7,000 Indians, what percentage were warriors and the rest were?
I would say about a good third of them were warriors. The rest were women and children. Yeah. This is the place that everyone loves to go to, the visitor center. Okay, that's my wife running in to get some, little Bighorn souvenirs. She loves that stuff. That's the museum inside. There's Custer. There's I think that's City Hall. I probably got it wrong, but now they have a lot in there. It's really cool. These are all original. I'm just going to show you these quickly. Uniforms, accoutrements of the period. Really well done. This is an Indian Scout uniform. So those are the other allies of the 7th Cavalry, right? The Crow, the Iroquois, they fought with Custer. This is a model diorama of Reno's retreat. See, remember I showed you the picture? This is looking north. They're going up here and trying to get away from the Indians facing them. This is another diorama of Last Ant Hill. And this is actually not correct because Custer was wearing a sheepskin, like what we call a Wild West brown sheepskin smock. Probably had his tunic underneath, but apparently, I'll show you in a minute, he was wearing a sheepskin overcoat when he died. These are some of the weapons. See, there are some older flintlocks. There's a Spencer repeater. There's a Winchester Henry rifle, right? So there's your 1873 Peacemaker Army revolver. That's a Remington 1858. They found these on the battlefield. Now that was probably an Indian weapon because the US Army weren't using Remingtons then. The bookstore, it's a massive look. Every book that you can ever read about the Little Bighorn, or like there's these books, like it's insane. There's these books. There's these books.
Is there a book called Indian Fighting for Dummies?
Yeah, no, these are all for hardcore Little Bighorn enthusiasts.
You got any pictures of the t-shirt collection?
The what?
The t-shirt collection.
Oh, no, I
Because
didn't.
my favorite is the 7th Cavalry flag.
Yeah.
With a big red blob on it that says splat.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it.
It's neat, you know, for the kids, they got these little toy Colt pistols and tomahawks, and, you know, trying to teach the kids non-violence, that's the toys, you know. The headstones, so everyone knows about the headstones. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the only national battlefield site to mark where the troops fell. Did I get, or is there another one?
No, it's the only one, but it's, you forgot the word supposedly.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. This is a picture of Custer's marker and those of his last command. I'll get to that later, you're right, Jonathan. Supposedly, some are accurate, some are not. Now, the only battlefield markers where soldiers fell, following the battle, the Lakota and Cheyenne removed their dead and buried them in lodges. Okay, they didn't leave them on the field. Surviving members of the cavalry buried the soldiers hastily. And the Indian scouts and civilians, there were civilians there that died. They just buried them hastily where they were. It was like June, it smelled, it was like, we're just burying them here. So by that time, in 1877, most of the officers' remains were exhumed. They were reinterred in Eastern Cemetery. So Custer's not buried there anymore, he's over at West Point. Okay? And there is a granite memorial there, which apparently has tons and tons of bones of unknown soldiers. Generally, some of the markers are very accurate, and some of them, they don't know. But you can kind of get a feel, and I'll show you in a minute, of the ebb and flow of the battle by looking at the markers. 1890, the Army placed 249 histone markers across the battlefield in an attempt to show where Custer's men had fallen. One entire company is missing. E Company of Custer's command is entirely missing. They all rode gray horses. 28 of these men were found dead in a ravine after the fight and noted in documentation by Terry's command that they found these troopers in the valley. They didn't bury them, or maybe they did, I can't remember. But now no one has any idea where their remains are. They know where the ravine is, there's no bodies. I bought a book on E Company. They're the missing company of Custer's command. Nobody knows where the bodies went. And the Indians didn't take them. So it's one of these weird things where they were never discovered, they just simply disappeared. Archaeologists can't find them under. So the 7th Cavalry casualties, 210 died with Custer. The Reno Benteen Battalion lost 53 men. That's the marker at Last Stand Hill with all the names of the guys that died with Custer. And there's a little memorial. I did ask the park rangers, they are, like, there's a whole ton of horse bones and human remains under this is a massive mound. Now, the picture that you saw earlier of Custer where he fell in his command, that was not necessarily where they found them. They simply dragged them apart and buried them. They fell in the area, but they didn't exactly fall in that spot. So those are markers with no humans. They took those and they moved them here, which is like 10 feet up the hill. This is at the top of the hill. And they're all buried under this obelisk. Okay? Now, when you look at the headstones, this is across the view. It's very humbling experience because you can see that it's a big battlefield. And you can see little markers spread here and there. These are probably accurate. These are where troopers tried to escape and run towards Last Stand Hill and just got slaughtered by the Indians. So you can see them in isolated areas like this. See, there's another grouping here. I think this is Calhoun's unit. They're trying to run to get the Custer's, it's just getting mowed down. They all kind of like last stand, meaning last stand, they get slaughtered in these little gullies. And that's where they buried them. They didn't move them over to the obelisk. Here's another one where you look real close and they're way out there. Ones and twos. There's a story thinking that one guy did survive, but then he got killed because he jumped on a pony. This is by Indian accounts. He rode off the battle, was getting away, and then 2 Indians were chasing him. He looked behind him thinking they're catching up, he pulls his revolver out and blows his own brains out. And that's an Indian account. And they think they have evidence to accept that they haven't. So if he didn't do that, he would survive. Because the Indians said, and this guy's getting away, he's got a fast point, we're not going to catch him. But you see a lot, you can see them way out there. And I wouldn't walk out there because you don't know what's, there's snakes and stuff out there. And you can't really go. There's single ones like this, right? It's sombering. Now here's the marker for the field hospital. This is the Reno Benteen site. It's fairly big. And in the deep gully, that's the field hospital, right? And don't forget, at that time, it was like 100 degrees, people were dying of thirst, and that's what a marker looks like. It's an unknown soldier. There's the one for the 7th Cavalry Horses. Remember, the 7th Cavalry Horses killed during Custer's last stand, buried in 1881. These are Indian markers. These are where some of the Indians fell, and they knew where they fell, and they marked them this way. There's not many of them. That's Last Stand Hill. Again, they're all buried here. They're not necessarily under all these. So as Jonathan, you said, it's not quite accurate that they fell there. Another view of Last Stand Hill. That cemetery in the back has nothing to do with Custer. That's the national cemetery for other soldiers of different wars.
There's a lot there.
Now, he's at West Point. That's his obelisk at West Point. So, some little tragedies and trivia. Custer factoids. He was born in 1839 in Raleigh, Ohio, but raised in Monroe, Michigan. That's him with his Confederate buddy that he went to school with at West Point. He's a prisoner of war. Custer was at Gettysburg. Some people think his contribution at Gettysburg was as important as Joshua Chamberlain's defense of the Round Top, because he basically prevented the Stuart's cavalry from surrounding and outflanking the Union forces at Gettysburg. He was court-martialed twice. Once for neglect of duty, another for AWOL. The second one was his wife was in the air and he went off looking for his wife. And he got him on AWOL. Pop quiz, what piece of famous furniture did Custer end up with at the end of the Civil War? Anybody know?
I think that's the table on which the treaty was signed between Grant and Lee.
Perfect, right? He was given that by, I believe, General Sheridan, I can't remember who, but his contribution to the Civil War was so noted, he got the table when he signed the treaty, so you're right. Just quickly, this is my trip to Monroe, Michigan. That's his statue in Monroe, Michigan. Now, pop quiz. Statues of famous figures wounded in action have a horse leg up. Those that were killed in action have both horse legs up. Why is the statue with all of the legs of the horses down? Jonathan, do you know? Why is the horses, like this is depicting that he survived. Why is that? Anybody care to guess? I had to find this out.
Early spin.
He's on the right track.
Yeah.
If you look at the uniform, that's the Civil War uniform.
Yeah.
So that's the Civil War service, not his Indian War service.
When was that put up?
Shortly after the Civil War.
So not like during the Jim Crow years?
No.
It's coming down.
That's what I
There's now a movement to remove it.
No.
I don't agree with it, but this is my pictures of Monroe, Michigan. Apparently it hasn't changed much. That's the main street, so it really hasn't changed much. That's the Custer home. That's not the home, that's the site of it. And there's a little marker there that's stupid me on the highway. Hey, honey, let's stop by the sign. And that's where he had his house. We had a farm here.
Harvey,
Yeah.
could you go back a minute to the statue where the horse's legs are on the ground?
Yeah.
Do you think?
I think it was put up in the 1800s. It's not new, but it was
well
not.
after.
I don't know. I don't think it was after the little. I think it was before, because that's why it's all four legs.
Because I may have a clue for you. His wife
Yes,
waged
Libby.
a tremendous battle to get him
Yes,
brought back into the limelight
correct.
for like 50 years.
Yes, her whole life, they never remarried. She spent her whole life trying to fix his reputation.
Yeah, so I thought she might have had something to do with it. But
She did. But I don't think this was like this is after Civil War. But she hated Benteen. She hated me. So now some other trivia. The origins of the 7th Cavalry were not all white Caucasians. They had foreign-born, quite a few of them were, look, 125 Germans. You've got a lot of Irish. Probably most of the men there were Irish, right? This is US born by state. So look, quite a few from the east, Massachusetts, New York, right? But all these guys were pretty well, they were not seasoned troops. They were young and they were inexperienced, apparently.
What was the Irish number again?
128.
Wasn't their song Gary Owen an Irish song?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the regiment's song is Gary Owen. If you do model the 7th Cavalry in war games, wherever their horses were different colors by which company they belonged to. Okay? So there's the E Company with the white horses. Okay? A Company are all black, B Company were brown. That was the way they used to identify which companies were on the field of battle by the color of their horses. Horses though can be unpredictable. The first to die were 2 troopers whose horses bolted, but they bolted towards the Indian encampment. No, they didn't survive very long. I forgot their names, but it's noted. They just followed. They couldn't stop the ponies. They just were right in the wrong direction. They didn't make it out. Custer had other families at the Little Bighorn. People probably know this. Well known as his younger brother Tom and Boston Custer were there. They died alongside him on the Stand Hill. And his nephew, Artie Reed, was a civilian with I think he was with the pack train. He decided to go with him, and he died with Custer's on Stand Hill. Custer's brother-in-law was Lieutenant James Calhoun, who died not far from Stand Hill. So he had family members there. That's his brother Tom Custer, who was a decorated Civil War Medal Honor winner. That's Boston Custer, Artie Reed's nephew, and that's Lieutenant James Calhoun. Sorry, I spoke James. Those are the markers for, I believe it's Boston Custer and Artie Reed here, but that's just his marker because he's not
Hey,
paid.
Harvey?
Yeah.
I remember reading somewhere that Custer could have taken a couple of Gatling guns with him.
Yes,
Is that-
yes. He had an opportunity to take some Gatling guns. Would it made a difference? I don't know. Would it? Speculation. But there was another Custer at the Little Bighorn. I was digging after this. There's another one there that not many people know was there at the Battle of the Little Bighorn. Custer, there is native testimony that's proven, there's a book out on it, that Custer had fathered a child named Yellow Swallow due to the boy's yellowish hair with a native woman called Monasita. I don't pronounce it wrong, probably. But that is true by all Indians. He married her, much to the chagrin of Libby. And it happened. And they fathered a boy together. So, Monasita was the daughter of Cheyenne Chief Little Rock. She and Custer were married and gave birth to their son in 1869. And the kid and his Indian wife were at the battle. They were in the Indian camp. So the kid would have been, what, do the math, 1876, he's just a couple of years old at the time, he was in the Indian camp. He didn't know that, Custer did not know that. Now, Monasita and her son, he was 7. Now, apparently Custer had gonorrhea while at West Point. He contacted her. So people say there's no way. Well, the theory has it that the child was actually Tom Custer's, but there's no proof. Researchers do say that he overcame the disease by the time he gave birth to his.
Wow.
I read on the internet that there is some medical thing that you can overcome arctic gonorrhea. I'm not a doctor. She died in 1922. And the son's name was Josiah Steele, and he died in 1950. One theory is that Custer was not mutilated on the Little Bighorn. And they think that it was her presence after the battle said, no, please don't touch the plot. That's just a theory. But he was not mutilated, he was not scalped. Some people say he was not scalped because he was kind of balding. So that's the book on her, that's his son. And that's another book on her. The Custer Reed family plot is in Monroe, Michigan. I went there too. I'm such a history nut. This is the plot. So Artie Reed, Boston Custer, they're buried here. And you see them. the plaque there. This is, Monroe, Michigan is just south of Detroit. And it tells you who they all are. And they tell you, you know, some of the people who died, they tell you here, Boston Custer, Audrey, Little Bighorn, historic markers. So that's me standing beside Boston Custer's monument, and that's Boston Custer's monument. And that's Audie Reed's monument on the other side of the headstone. So he's buried there. Indian Scout, Mitch Boyer. So 7th Cavalry had Indian Scouts. Now, for many decades, his remains were not known, but with the 1983 fire, they finally solved the mystery. Archaeologists discovered bones in the grave, suggesting a person of Caucasian Mongoloid mix. The teeth were worn down as a pipe smoker. The mother of pearl button would have been worn on civilian clothing as part of the accoutrements of an Indian Scout for the 7th Cavalry. They actually looked at the forensics, and they pretty well think that this is him because they matched up his bone to his picture. So that's how they knew it was him. So there's a lot of fascinating little factoids about this. That's his marker there. And that's probably closer to the last hand hill, but further down in the gully. And that's probably an accurate marker.
Harvey, what tribe was he?
He was of mixed French, and I think part of him, I think, was Sioux. I seem to recall, but I may be wrong. I'm not an expert on it, but he was half French.
Well, given the half Frenchness, he was Métis then, and
Maybe.
maybe there's some Canadian connection.
Yep. Vincent Charlie, Troop D 7th Cavalry, was from Switzerland. He was killed during the abortive rescue by Captain Weir. So remember I told you they went from the pack train, we're going to help out, he died here. Now why am I talking about him? Because they identified his remains after the fire. He was left behind because he got wounded, he got shot in the hip. And Brigadier General Edgerly, who went on to a career in the military, just still had this image that he tried to pick him up, he couldn't, and then the Indians overwhelmed and killed him. So his facial reconstructions were also mapped. That's actually the guy that survived, trying to save him, and this is a facial reconstruction of Vincent Charlie, what he looked like. So this fascinating stuff, and that's his marker on the side of the highway here. There was a black at Little Bighorn. Isaiah Dorman, he was the only black that died in Little Bighorn. Born in 1832 in Philadelphia as a free black. He fought bravely as his horse was shot under him during Regal's retreat from the first attack on the Indian village. The Sitting Bull knew him personally, and basically because this guy actually lived in Lakota, but then he needed work, so he turned to the U.S. Army for work. He was killed by Lakota as a turncoat. That's his marker. And that's allegedly a picture of him. Canadian, the ammunition adjutant, that was basically William Cook. He was born in Hamilton, or not far from Hamilton, Ontario, and he wrote a famous note, bring packs, bring packs. Remember that he writes a little note to the Italian guy who can't really read, and that's him. He was killed beside Custer on Last Hand Hill. You can see pictures of him here, and pictures of him here. This is a more accurate one of what Custer probably wore before he was killed. This is his marker in Hamilton. This is Hamilton Cemetery, which is in downtown Hamilton. And that's the family marker, and that's his marker. So he's buried in Hamilton, Ontario. Another Canadian, Mark Kellogg. Anybody know who this guy is? Hands up. A reporter. He's the first reporter to die in combat. The guy says, I want to go along with the ride and cover this. And that's a picture of Mark Kellogg. He's Canadian. I think he's from near Kingston. And, Brighton, Ontario, that's near Kingston. First combat reported to die in frontline service. He lost his horse for some reason, and the Army gave him a mule, like a donkey. Well, they don't really run that fast, so the Indians got up with him. And as a result, he was trailing and he was killed. One of the few markers that remain in history is his, because it seems to be very far from where he actually fell, but who knows? They think this is his marker. Why is there two? There's speculation that he was so mutilated that he thought there were two people. So sometimes you see these things where there's two markers. Right? Pretty isolated. There's his marker. Bravery of the Little Bighorn. What top 5 wars yielded the most recipients of the Medal of Honor? Any wars that you think won the most of the war? Anybody? Civil War, pretty obvious. Anything else? Second World War, anyone?
Spanish-American War?
Spanish-American, let's see. Civil War, right off the top. Second, was it Korea? Yeah, well, World War II, pretty obvious. Indian Wars.
Whoa, 4?
Indian Wars. Now, a little bit of Vietnam
I was 10 years old.
and World War I.
They started late though.
Yeah, don't forget, the earlier recipients were kind of, with all due respect, they didn't have a proper way of giving it out with certain criteria. Now it's pretty hard to get a medal of honor. I'm not saying that the guys earlier didn't deserve it, but the standards are a little higher now. Now, what top battles yielded the most recipients of the Medal of Honor? It took me a while to get this stuff together, but top battles. Gettysburg,
Shiloh.
Shiloh, Antietam. So those are all like Civil War. Let's see. Iwo Jima, by far. Most number of medal recipients was U.S. Marine Corps at Iwo Jima. Don't forget, Iwo Jima was a long-lasting battle. When they raised the flag, the battle was not finished. It was only like starting when they raised the flag, civilized. Battle of Bulge, 21.
Yeah.
Number 3, Little Bighorn. Half of which were at the Rio Bentine site fetching water. They're running out of water for the wounded, so they sent men out to the. I would say that because I was there, between the defense perimeter of the Rio Bentine site and the river, you're talking a good, I don't know, quarter of a mile? That's a long way with a bunch of Indians swarming around. So 12 of them got Medal of Honors, some were killed, trying to get water and just simply bringing it back. Now, you've all heard of this Wounded Knee. Now, this was controversial because Wounded Knee was like very much one-sided battle. So you got to take that one with a grain of salt. But everyone knows on the British, does anybody know the British? Victoria Cross, which battle at the top had the most VCs? Warstrip.
What?
Warstrip.
But that wasn't 20 some odd, was it?
11.
Yeah, I think it was like 11. So this is, again, Boston Custer's brother was a two-time Medal of Honor winner during the Civil War. Were there any survivors? Yeah, 2.
Bantine, Reno.
A horse.
Oh.
Captain Mal Kehoe's horse, Comanche.
Yeah.
And the survivor of the decimated company, Sergeant Martin, the Italian trumpeter, Giovanni Martino, was sent off a message that Adjutant Cook gave him to take back to Bantine to say bring the packs, bring him home.
Harvey?
So he's, yeah.
I know another survivor. I already told you this.
Yes, please.
I know this is just hearsay. I have no proof, but my father told me. My father was born raised on a farm in Alberta, and his father was an early settler of Alberta, and one of his neighbors was in that campaign, and the only reason why he survived was because he was left behind to look after the supply wagons.
Yep. They think that there was arguably another one. If you Google survivor of Western's battle, there's another guy, his name slips me, but there's no proof at all that he did. He said he did, and people say, well, it seems like he was there, but no one said that it actually happened. Now, Martino fought with Garibaldi, but he actually died after he got hit by a truck. So, hey, which, by the way, I believe the top Chinese fighter ace of the Nationalist Air Force also died after getting hit by a truck. That's another story.
Harvey,
Yeah.
were there any Chinese people there?
No.
No.
No. There were Gettysburg. There was a Chinese trooper with 123rd Connecticut who won actually a Medal of Honor at the Battle of Gettysburg. So I couldn't reenact her as a Union soldier. But no, there were none at the Little Bighorn. So the last surviving member of the 7th Cavalry was Private Charles Mindolf, 78, who died close to 100 years of age in 1950. I'm sure you have many stories. That's Martin or Martino, and that's Comanche, the horse. Which after he survived, they just didn't. Nobody rode him. They fed him. They just pampered the horse. Custer's death, obviously, likely at last hand. Some people think he fell in the river, but they pretty well think he did die for last hand hill. 3 wounds, wrist, breast, and head. Was the last one self-inflicted? No one knows. Did Custer die in his jacket? It's taken by Indians, given to traders. The wounds match the location, but no one knows for sure. But we do know this is the type of thing that he wore when he
I
died.
remember hearing that he shaved his head before the battle to prevent it from being scalped. Is that true?
Rumor has it that he was aging at the time. And yeah. He was aging, he didn't have a lot of hair. I don't know, I haven't heard that he was shaving, but he just didn't have a lot of hair. So the reenactment is fabulous. So they really did a good job reenacting. This is called the Real Bird Cremation. That's the Indian Reserve that runs it. They run it. The U.S. government doesn't run it, the Cremation runs it. Now, the irony is the Cremation are allies of the U.S. at the time. The Sioux were the enemy, but they're the ones that run it, and they're the ones that kind of, reenacting the enemy, but they were actually allies. And these are just pictures. You can actually pay to ride with these guys, I think 3-4 days before the reenactment every year. It's not cheap, but they dress you up, they teach you how to ride a horse. I didn't do it. And they teach you how to use the weapon on a horse. The horses are extremely well behaved. And they go to firing line, they're shooting their rifles, and the horses, they know, so they're not panicking. But it's just a really good job. The uniform and equipment is just, I think it's bang on. And see, look, I mean, it looks so real. I could do it in black and white, you think it's real. And now, you can see that horses are all different colors, so that's probably not correct, but notwithstanding. And then they're riding in the park up in the mountains, so that's pretty cool. Another close-up of the reenactment. So I think they do a pretty good job, and it's pretty hot out there with those wool uniforms, right? Like I'm in the Air Forces now, the uniforms they give us, they're really good. They're Gore-Tex in the winter, they breathe easy. These guys wore wool. Like, that's pretty nasty stuff. Like they look the part. That's in the firing line with expensive repeaters. Just wrapping up. That's the Indian Scout. And now that's one of the reenactors of stock dude. Look, he's a pretty young guy. So they were probably about his age. Because I asked this guy, how old are you? And he said he was about 20, I think he said. So they'd probably be these skinny looking young kids. They probably look like him. Well, by the way, spoiler alert, the U.S. lost. Just say it.
What's it?
The U.S. lost in this battle, just spoiler alert, these guys won. I can't tell you they're all playing dead, so. Now, Colt Cavalry, you saw my model of the Colt Cavalry. I didn't bring it tonight, but I built an LS model kit. That's what I did. I brought it ready tonight. I was just flipping through these quickly because I want to finish up. But this is the 1873 Colt Army pistol, the ones that were used by all of the cavalry troopers. I used the LS kit, and I just engraved the markings as per the one that was sold at auction. They found a family had in their possession this, I made this model after the one that I saw at auction. The family had it in their family. They took it to Rock Island Arsenal. It had a proof by the serial number that it was from the battle. The only workable surviving Colt that they took off because it was an Indian capture, and it sold at auction for, those are the rounds for it, sold at auction. How much do you think it sold for at auction? This is about 3-4 years ago.
$1 million.
Close, 800,000. That's just that's the way I quote the model. I used oils for, I'm going to go through these really quick because I don't know what you guys. I used shoe polish for the bluing of the gun. So if you ever build an LS gun, shoe polish is really great to represent the finish on a Colt. That's a close-up of my model. You can see parts of this. This is a different color. Hopefully I did it justice, but I won't bring it to a show because that's the real one. So that's the real one. And that's mine.
Is that 5 rounds or 6?
6. See, that's the real one. That's mine. So, I don't know. I tried. That's mine too. And that's, Great.